Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 17 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation M.O.V.I.E. We begin this segment with the Sector V operatives of the Kids Next Door at the movie theater. They're watching a Rainbow Monkeys double feature, and number 4 is the only Sector V operative who isn't enjoying the double feature. Number 4 expresses his lack of enjoyment of the double feature to his teammates when they enter the theater lobby after the first half of the double feature finishes. And number 4 is also determined to watch a different movie besides the second half of the double feature. While he's exploring the theater, number 4 sees an adult purchase a ticket for Violence the movie, and number 4 expresses interest in seeing this movie, so he tries to purchase a ticket as well. But the theater employee tells number 4 that Violence the movie is an R-rated movie. Number 4 grumbles to himself about how the adults are trying to keep the good movies for themselves, in his words, but he's still determined to watch Violence the movie, no matter what it takes. At first, number 4 simply tries to sneak into the room that's showing Violence the movie, but a theater employee catches him, and the theater employee is rather cheerful about the whole thing because he simply thinks number 4 went into this room by accident. So the theater employee is all too happy to show number 4 the room that he thought number 4 wanted to go to, namely the Rainbow Monkeys double feature, and number 4 is not happy about this. So number 4's next plan is to disguise himself as an adult, an admiral to be more specific, and he is able to successfully purchase a ticket for Violence the movie. He's about to hand the ticket to the theater employee that's just outside of the room for Violence the movie. But due to the arms and legs of number 4's disguise lacking mobility and being rather stiff, the ticket falls to the ground, and number 4 isn't sure how he's going to get the ticket without blowing his cover. Fortunately for number 4, an adult, the same adult that number 4 saw purchase a ticket earlier, in fact, picks up the ticket for number 4, saying that they don't want to miss this particular showing or viewing, and number 4 thanks the adult for his help and follows him inside the room. The adult that number 4 joined it notes that it's a very crowded viewing this time around, but the two of them are able to find 2 open seats in the middle of one of the rows. And the adult admits to number 4 that this is his first time going to such a viewing. Number 4 also says it's his first time as well, and the adult is happy to see that he's not alone with regards to having a first experience with this particular viewing. But when the doors close and everyone is all seated, number 4 is surprised to see that the movie isn't starting, and the adult that he met is confused about number 4 being confused about no movie being shown. Instead of a movie, there's a stage. There's a stage where the screen would normally be, and Mr. Boss goes onto the screen. Mr. Boss walks onto the stage, and Mr. Boss tells everyone that the coast is clear, so they don't need their disguises anymore. Number 4 is surprised to see that the audience members consist of the adult villains of the Kids Next Door's Rogues Gallery, and the adult that helped number 4 out earlier is actually the Toilinator. Number 4 realizes that R-rated movies are actually secret adult villain meetings. And Mr. Boss says that, as usual, they're going to talk about how they're going to try and eliminate the Kids Next Door. So he inquires the audience if they have any suggestions, but none of the other villains present seem to have any ideas. Toilinator actually ends up Toilinator is raising his hand and trying to get their attention so he can share his idea. Mr. Boss keeps trying to see if anyone else has any suggestions before he begrudgingly agrees to let Toilinator say what he has to say. Toilinator says that they could try and capture one of the Kids Next Door operatives to lure the other operatives as bait. Or yeah, the one operative they intend to capture can be bait for the other Kids Next Door operatives to lure them in a trap. Toilinator suggests that they capture the stupidest member of the Kids Next Door. And some of the other villains actually do like the sound of this plan. They also say that they should try and capture number 4 because they consider number 4 the dumbest of the dumbest of the Kids Next Door operatives. And Mr. Boss in particular praises Toilinator for his idea. He also expresses liking the part about capturing number 4, probably because he still holds a grudge against number 4 for the events of Operation Office. Realizing that he needs to get out of there as soon as he can, number 4 requests to use the bathroom. Mr. Boss allows him to, but also points out that adults don't need to request permission to use the bathroom. So number 4 tries to make his way out of the row that he's sitting in the middle of, but unfortunately his disguise is undone, so the villains in the room see that number 4 himself is there. So number 4 tries to put up a bit of a fight against the villains, but he's eventually captured by Big Brother, who is a kid villain actually, so it's rather unusual that Big Brother would be in a secret adult villain meeting, but I digress. So Big Brother has number 4 captured, and Mr. Boss questions number 4 if he has any last requests. Number 4 requests candy known as Chewy Pellets. Mr. Boss complains about kids liking candy, but he agrees to number 4's last request. So he calls for the theater employee, who's also secretly an adult villain, who's also providing the candy for the room. He requests the theater employee to bring some Chewy Pellets. So the theater employee does so. Mr. Boss puts the Chewy Pellets in number 4's mouth because number 4, like I said, Big Brother's holding number 4 like this, so only number 4's head is visible right now. So Mr. Boss gives number 4 the Chewy Pellets by putting them in his mouth, and he tells number 4 to enjoy his last meal while he can. But number 4 reveals what he really intended to do with the Chewy Pellets. He actually spits them back at Mr. Boss and Big Brother to distract them so number 4 can escape. And he is able to escape the horde of villains, and he jumps up to the window that leads to the projector room for this particular room in the theater. So he enters the projector room and he's about to leave, but the Toilinator enters the projector room, and the Toilinator is frustrated with number 4 because he said before now this was actually the best day of his life, saying that he was actually respected by his fellow villains, and he thought he made a new friend in number 4, only to be furious that his alleged new friend is, in his words, his greatest enemy. And number 4 ends up being trapped in the Toilinator's toilet paper when the Toilinator uses the toilet paper wristbands to trap number 4 in some toilet paper, and Toilinator is praising himself for capturing number 4. Number 4, though, is able to distract Toilinator by complimenting Toilinator and saying he should be in the movies, and number 4 manages to snag some of the toilet paper onto the projector so he can be freed and Toilinator can be stuck, and Toilinator expresses his dislike for number 4 when he realizes what number 4 tried to do. So number 4 is able to escape the secret adult villain meeting he was able to escape unharmed. So number 4 meets up with his teammates. His teammates question if number 4 enjoyed the movie that he went to see, but number 4 says that it wasn't as good as he thought it would be. And the segment ends with number 3 in particular telling number 4 about the second half of the Rainbow Monkeys double feature. So this segment gives us another number 4 spotlight appearance, and we also get to see the return of a few villains from season 1. Toilinator and Mr. Boss in particular get the most attention because Toilinator actually does get to play a significant role, and so does Mr. Boss. Actually, yes, this segment is the segment that shows Mr. Boss as sort of being one of the leaders of the Rogues Gallery. And this kind of helps to highlight more how Mr. Boss is one of the main villains of the series when compared to Operation Office, which didn't really get to highlight that detail as much. And yes, Father was actually one of the villains who appeared in cameo form in the audience, but Father only appeared like at the beginning of the villains meeting. He doesn't appear for the rest of the meeting, probably because, yeah, Father is the most powerful villain in the show. Well, the most powerful villain right now. Like I mentioned it before, there is a villain who actually is more powerful than Father, or at least more dangerous than Father, but that particular villain hasn't made an appearance just yet. So we'll cross that bridge when we eventually get to it. But for now, Father is the most powerful villain in the rogues gallery that we've met so far. So it does seem a bit unusual, or I remember some viewers, and I was myself included when I was a kid first watching this segment, I was also confused why Father wasn't the one who was the host of the secret adult villain meeting. But I figured, or at least I've come to see it as maybe it's because Mr. Boss is the more sociable of... Yeah, I kind of think of Mr. Boss as probably being the more sociable between him and Father, and Mr. Boss is probably the more likely to rally others to help him, because Father is powerful enough to really be a one-person army, so Father is pretty powerful in his own right. And to be fair, a later entry in the series does show Father as being the leader of a villain meeting or a villain team-up. So we'll eventually cross that bridge when we get to it, but it does seem like for more minor details, they let Mr. Boss call the shots, but it seems when Father has something in mind, they're willing to let Father take charge. So yeah, I guess it's more Mr. Boss is probably the more sociable of the two, while Father is, yeah, probably more of a lone wolf, I guess you could say. So that's at least what I've come to justify Mr. Boss kind of being shown as a leader of the villains. And speaking of the meeting, I actually thought that was a clever idea to have R-rated movies be secret adult villain meetings. It actually would be a pretty good way to have for the villains to have meetings without any of the kids. It would be an R-rated movie seems like a good cover for adult villains to meet in secret without having to worry about kids interfering, as long as the security is strong. But that wasn't the case here for number 4, who did manage to sneak his way into one of these meetings. And yeah, like I mentioned in the recap, it did seem pretty unusual that they had Big Brother in the meeting, since he's actually a kid villain rather than an adult villain. And this segment also does show some continuity hiccups, one of the few mistakes in the serialization or continuity, because Count Spankulot is actually shown to be one of the villains in the audience, but Count Spankulot is supposed to be in jail right now after the events of Operation Spank. And I did mention this in the recap and thoughts video for Operation Spank, but there is an entry in season 3 where Count Spankulot has a major role, and you could say that entry acts as a sequel to Operation Spank, which has to do with him still being in jail. So yeah, this is one of the few continuity hiccups that the show has, but again, I've said this before, we all make mistakes. There's bound to be some mistakes that slip through the cracks, even when you try your best to be diligent about catching mistakes. I know that's happened to me myself a few times, and I'm sure that's happened for others as well. But yeah, like I said, it's just a minor detail that I noticed. It doesn't ruin the experience for me. It's just something like, oh, I noticed that sort of thing. And yeah, like I said with Toilinator, Toilinator, like I was mentioned before, Tom Warburton had acknowledged on one of his blog posts that Toilinator was originally just a one-shot villain, but he ended up getting one more appearance in season 1 than he intended. But I think by season 2, I think that might have been the earliest when Tom Warburton and the rest of the crew members had a better idea of Toilinator's apparent popularity with some viewers, and why they decided to make Toilinator a more prevalent villain in the rogues gallery. Although this segment in particular does highlight Toilinator's status as the as the joke villain or the joke member of the Rogues Gallery. And although he does get some bit of respect here, but that ends up not lasting very long. And we will get to see Toilinator's status as kind of the joke villain in later entries as well. And that's right, yes, Toilinator regards number 4 as his greatest enemy in his words in this segment. And that detail actually does come up in a later entry. And so I guess one could make the argument that Toilinator could be considered one of number 4's arch enemies, or at least one-sided. At least Toilinator seems to view number 4 as an arch enemy, but number 4 doesn't seem to hold, or the feeling doesn't seem to be mutual on number 4's part. But it is pretty amusing because both number 4 and Toilinator share the same voice artist, D. Bradley Baker, so essentially, yeah, it's D. Bradley Baker has a feud with himself, apparently, so that's pretty amusing. Otherwise, a few other notable details was number 1, number 2, and number 5 were actually shown to enjoy the Rainbow Monkeys double feature. Because we know number 4 isn't a big fan of Rainbow Monkeys, but it was interesting to see that the other Sector V operatives besides number 3 were enjoying the movie. And another little attention to detail that I noticed more recently, or I didn't catch it the first time around, but I caught it in later viewings, was when the Sector V operatives were in the theater lobby after the first half of the double feature finished, Mr. Boss is actually shown wearing a trench coat walking past them to arrange the secret adult villain meeting. So I thought that was actually a pretty cool touch. Like, I like those little those little details of those attention to details. I like those. I think it's nice how they put a lot of thought and effort into those small, minor details that still play into the bigger picture of any particular entry. So I thought that was a cool detail when I caught that in later viewings of this segment. So otherwise, there we go for now. We got another number 4 spotlight appearance. We got to see the first of the many adult meetings, the adult villain meetings or group meetings among adult villains. We got to see Mr. Boss establish himself as one of the main villains of the series, and we get to see Toilinator establish himself as the joke villain of the series. And yeah, like I said, we also got to see a mundane situation made in a more over-the-top manner, which is the norm for Codename Kids Next Door, namely R-rated movies actually being secret adult villain meetings. Oh, and another little detail is Tom Warburton mentioned on one of his blog posts that in order to fill up the audience with multiple villains, the character designer for the show, or the character designers, had actually drew staff members of the show, and they drew them wearing supervillain costumes. So that's a small little Easter egg or trivia bit for anyone who's curious and wants to look for the staff members drawn in supervillain costumes. So otherwise, there we go for now. As of this video, we've now discussed the A segment of episode 17 of Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time.